flex a lifestyle. I go hard for God daily cause I'm God's child. I got a purpose that I'm doing on purpose. Firm foundation, 10 toes meet the surface. Something always happen when I bless his name. My faith got me standing tall like Great Danes. Holy Spirit's in the room. Holy Spirit's in the room. We don't have to light a candle. We don't have to light a candle. Go ahead and let your light shine. Don't let your light shine. And treat the word as a handle.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Kirby Love, CEO, founder, Go Hard for God Daily, and welcome back to another episode of Get Inspired. I feel like I haven't really broken down what Get Inspired is, and since I'm solo today, I can talk a little bit about that, right? I don't like to waste people's time. I'm a very timely person. I like to make the best of the time that I have and make the best of other people's time that they allow me to get from them. So for you guys who are viewing and listening, whether you're new, whether you're returning, I don't want to waste your time just rambling about anything, right? But for today's discussion, for today's talk, what I want to do is just kind of tell you a little bit about Get Inspired, since I really haven't. I'm not going to say I didn't have the opportunity to, but usually when we have a guest, I kind of get right into allowing them to tell their story, which is what Get Inspired really is about, is allowing believers to tell how they navigate life in their particular areas. Because I believe God uses people in so many different ways, in so many different areas. And one of the things that I wanted to do was to show and put on display that the things that you do don't have to just be locked into you doing something at your local church, right? If you're a photographer or if you are a cook or whatever the case may be, everything that you do don't have to be at the local church, right? You can be marketplace and still go hard for God, right? You can still display the lifestyle of a believer in the marketplace or wherever it is that you are. So on here, you may see athletes on here. You may see full-time moms. You may see full-time dads. You may see people in the military, like my brother-in-law who's been on here, pastors, evangelists, boxers, just a list. The list goes on, but again, this is what we're doing. The motto that we have is to display the lifestyle of believers through apparel and media, and Get Inspired is the media side of Go Hard for God Daily. This is where we're able to display and showcase the lifestyle of believers in their areas that they're functioning and operating in. So we just want to inspire people, encourage people that you can be a lawyer, you can be a judge, you can be wherever it is that God has placed you and given you the grace to operate, and still go hard for God daily in those areas. All right. So that is a little bit of backdrop behind Get Inspired and what it's about. And if you would like to be on the Get Inspired podcast, then there is a form that you can fill out. All the links will be in the description. You can go and do that. And if you want to check out some merch, I know I don't really promote the merch on the podcast as much. You kind of see it all the time. But if you want to grab some merch, then you can go to the website. All those links and everything is in the description as well. ghfgd.com. And you'll be able to grab whatever is available. All right. So just a special thank you to all of those who have been following, all of those who have been listening to us and rocking with us thus far. We're, again, just getting started in this thing. This is episode number 4. We're just excited about what God is doing and allowing us to step into the space and to create an atmosphere for others to be inspired and begin to move into the things that they have been called to move into and function in and navigate life as a believer in those areas. All right. So that is a quick intro, a little longer than I wanted it to be. Again, I don't want to waste too much time today, but again, thank you guys for tuning in, for rocking and listening to us on today. I want to share something that I was studying this week. I want to kind of get into that first. We typically are unscripted here, but this is something that I was studying. So I said, man, that'll be good to share with the people. But I want to tie it into us where we are today, again, to encourage us in our walk, in our day-to-day things that we do, in our conversations, and how we view things, on how we treat the things that God gives us and so forth. So, what I was studying was Luke 15. It was in Luke 15 about the prodigal son. I know we've heard this story over and over and over and over and over, but I'm a perspective type of guy. So that means that when I see something or when I hear something, I'm not just kind of sold on just it being a good story. It's a great story. It's a phenomenal parable that Jesus gave. And I believe that one of the main focus points of this parable was to show the love of the Father that He has for us as His children, as sons and daughters in the earth. So I just want to expound on this a little bit more. Hopefully, it can help you guys in your day to day walk and things that that God has given you. That you don't misuse or mismanage. But before I go into all of that, let's just read what happened, and then let's start dissecting and just having a conversation about it, and seeing how we can tie this into how we are in our day to day life right now. So I got some notes wrote down right here, and then we're gonna just free flow from that right there. All right. So again, the prodigal son is a great story, and I talked about the one of the main things that I believe is on display is the love of the Father in the prodigal son's parable. Now, here's a shift of perspective that I want to give for you, because I'm a perspective type of guy. So usually if you hear me tell you a story or something and I'm coming from the Bible, I'm probably going to give you some perspectives because I want you to get the full revelation. And I think this is something that we should do all the time as believers. Whenever we're studying the word, when we're studying the Bible, then we should be looking to go deeper and not just stay on the surface of things, and just kind of keep moving on and on and on and on and on, right? It's almost like you just read chapter 1 through 5, but you don't do any meditation on it. You don't go do any study or history or anything like that on it. So here's what we are. Let's talk about Luke 15. All right. Luke 15, starting at verse 13. All right. So the first two things that I want to highlight is that in the perspective shift is that many of us are one of the two sons today, or have been one of the two sons somewhere in our life. We're going to go deeper into this. All right. So A, you either take what you didn't deserve or what you didn't earn, I would say, and you misuse or mismanage it, and you don't realize what you had until it's gone. Or B, you think someone don't deserve what you have because you've been, quote unquote, doing right, doing the right thing the whole time. All right, so those are some notes. You can take those and jot those things down. All right, now let's go into what the scripture says. This is Luke 15:13-14. It says, now many days later, the younger son gathered all he had and took a journey into a far country, and there he squandered his property in reckless living. All right, let's break it down right here. So the younger son basically went to his father, and say, "Hey, give me, my portion, right?" And then Scripture tells us that he took a journey into a far country, and there he squandered his property in recklessness. So, and what we would say in our time is, say he got that money, or he got his land or his property, his crops or whatever, he got his portion, and he went and acted a fool with it, right? That's something that we would say in today's time, and that's basically what happened, right? He went and just kind of did whatever he wanted to do with what his father had given him. Now I want to tie that into, again, some a relatable point of where we are in our life today and how we should treat the things of God. Because remember, I believe the overall hierarchy of this parable is showing, how the Father gives us things and how we treat things that the Father gives, and how the Father still receives us whenever we make mistakes and so forth. So let's talk about the mismanaging part of the things that the Father gives us sometimes. Whenever God gives you something, whether in whatever perspective or whatever range of what it is, our responsibility is to manage what God gives. everything that he gives is for a purpose, right? And we can go back to the parable of, with the talents, right? Everything that God gives, he's looking or expecting, a return, and for you to be fruitful and you to actually multiply the thing, not just get it and mismanage the things that he have given you the ability or given you to possess, right? So that's the first point in this that I started to realize and just get in reading this. I'm like, man, this younger son. Now we can go along down a long list of things and say, well, maybe he was immature, or maybe he didn't have this, or maybe he didn't think about this, or whatever the case. The fact is, he mismanaged what he had. Now let's continue to read and just have a conversation about more about what happened in this story. So it says, and when he had spent everything, right? He went out, acted a fool. Now you ain't got nothing left. All right. He spent everything, and a severe famine arose in that country, and he began to be in need. Now, what if? Here's where the what if comes in at, and this is why I want to relate it back to where we are now. What are some things that God's given you that you haven't managed, that you have misused? And what if a famine is coming, or a time is coming where God actually prepared you for that time? He actually gave you the things that you need for that time, but you mismanaged and you misused the things that you had for that time. And now you are the reason that you're in this dire place. Let's continue in this. All right. So now he's in need. And we can say it's his fault he's in need because he mismanaged what he had, right? The other part of this is he disconnected himself from the source, right? This is why he was in need. And once I read this and I started to meditate on it, and I got that revelation, I said, man, that is so powerful, because this shows that through life, God gives things to us. The Father gives us things, and we can mismanage, we can misuse it, and then we'll go on about our business sometime, right? Where we're just we get the blessings, we get the things that we've prayed for, that we've asked for, and a lot of things that we didn't deserve, but God still gives anyway. Then we'll go on sometimes and just live and go on about our life. And then when the rubber meets the road, or when the times get hard, then we finally realize, like, man, I don't have anything left. I'm dry, or things are not going well, and we don't realize the main reason for that sometimes is because we've disconnected from the source. We've disconnected from the source, and this is what happened in this moment. So yes, he had the things that his father had given him, but he misused what he had, and then the famine came, and he was not prepared for what came because of his mismanagement of the things that the father had prepared and given him. And oftentimes we do that same thing, right, with what God gives us. And this is why I say, at some point of our life, or even right now, there are some of us who were just like the younger son, or the younger brother, because it was two of them. So whichever way you want to put it, there's some of us who are like that right now, and there's some of us who have either been in that place where we've done that very thing. So when we go on to Luke 15:17, it says, but he came to himself, right? This is him sitting down, and now he's thinking like, hey, my father's servants are basically living a better life than I am. That's the Kirby Love version. Let me read what the scripture says. But when he came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have more than enough bread, but I perish here with hunger? All right. But again, from a perspective side, he disconnected himself from the source. The servants, it doesn't necessarily make them better than him, but they're connected to the source that he was connected to. So therefore, they're still able to eat and have in the middle of the famine because they're connected to the source who's giving. So the same source that gave him and he mismanaged what he had is the same source that's feeding and providing for the servants. All right. So that's a point that I wanted to make in that. So the question that I have right here is, do the servants have more because the son is broke, busted, and disgusting, or because they are still with the father? Right? They're still, or is it because they're still connected to the source? So the point that I want to get to you is, when you remain connected to the source, there's no time of need or thing in life or in history of this earth that God is not going to provide and continue to keep you afloat. But the moment that you just take the things that the Father gives and then you just say, okay, it's almost like, well, God, I don't really need you no more right now. You've done enough. You've given me this. And we go on about our business and do what it is that we want to do until everything dries up, right? Now, what happens, though, if you actually manage what God gives? What happens if you don't misuse the things that the Father provides for you, right? Then maybe when a famine comes, you won't be in that position, right? So we can go a lot of what ifs in this situation, but according to the story that's being told, this is what I found is just so profound. Is the main part is he's been disconnected from the source, right? But the source is still there. The source is still available to him. And this is what we see in this story, is that he's able to go back to the source. But before we get to that point, what I want to do is highlight the point B that I gave you on why we are either A or B, why we're either one of these two sons at some point in our life or right now in our life. So let's watch and listen to what happens as he goes back, as he get ready to go back, right? So I got another point in here. I said it don't matter how much you have without the Father, you'll eventually find yourself in a place where things run dry. The servants were still connected to the source. I've given you that point right there. Now, when he went back, what happened was the father was excited to have him back, right? Because he had went off and he basically got lost. All right. And this goes back to the lost sheep and things like that. And this whole Luke 15, all of it kind of ties into a main point of the Father being loving and receiving us back. Now, when he comes back, the older brother, he's kind of not with it, right? And the reason he's not with it is because he's like, look, and I'm gonna paraphrase this. He's just like, look, little brother went off. He done took what you gave him. He done mismanaged it. He done misused it. He broke, busted, and disgusted. He out here settling for less. He all kind of stuff, right? You can give him name after name after name after name after name, but this is sometimes us. We'll see something or someone from afar, and because they may not have what we have, they may have fallen away or fell off or whatever the case may be, and we instantly begin to kind of put ourselves in a position where we're like, why are they coming back? Now they want to do this. Now they feel like they should have this or whatever the case may be. And another thing that he had a problem with was the father went and got the best calf. He went and told the servants to get a coat and everything like that. So he basically was receiving him back with great things, right? And again, the moral I feel of this whole story is God receiving us back when we get lost and still being there for us. So this younger brother is now coming back, being connected to the source, and as he's being connected to the source, connected back to the source, the brother is like he has a problem with it, but he don't really understand and see what's really going on, right? So for us, when we're looking at people who are lost, when we're looking at people and seeing people who have strayed away, it doesn't mean that they're not who they are. He was still his brother. He was still the son of his father. Like, you're still supposed to be connected to the source. And what he did was he came back. and the father received him back. And when the father received him back, he didn't devalue him. He didn't take anything away from who he was as his son. Right. So that was another point that I wanted to make in this whole story, man, for us to be able to be in a place where just because we're still doing, because the brother, he was still doing fine, obviously. Just because we're in a better place doesn't mean that we can look at somebody else who may not be where we are and look down on them and feel like they don't deserve the same things that you are able to obtain or you are able to walk in at that point in your life, right? Or at that point in their life, or whatever the case may be. And what we should do is rejoice when they come back from a lost state. And that's what the father was trying to tell the older brother, right? To be happy that he's back home, right? And he's not lost and he's not out here broke, busted, and disgusted and settling for less and just kind of doing whatever he can just to get by, right? But what this shows, man, is the power, again, and I'm going to say this again and for the last time, it shows the power and of God. It shows the love of God, and it shows how being connected to the source is so important. And God the Father being our source is something that we need to stay connected to. All right. If it don't matter how much we have or how much we attain, that the Father allows us to get and graces us to get and graces us to be in places to do certain things. The moment we disconnect, we can still operate and function at a high level until a point in time. And that point in time is because you get disconnected from the source. And I'm not saying that you're not going to have some troubling times or you're not going to have some times where things don't get rough when you're connected to the source, because there's still growing pains. There's still learning curves. There's still things that you have to go through. But when you're connected to the source, you're still covered. When you're connected to the source, you can still eat when it gets hard. Because the source is going to continue to provide for you, which is the Father, right? And this is the point that I want to get and make it more relative to where we are in today's time and where you are right now. And hopefully it inspires you. Hopefully it encourages you to be like, man, to assess your life, to assess yourself and see what it is that God has given you. And if you're managing what God has given you, are you being a good steward over what God has given you? Or are you misusing it? Because you never know what is going to come and how what you had could have actually propelled you through that particular time. And that is the point that I want you guys to get in this story. All right. So that's that. The next thing I want to talk about is, just the authentic version of you. I've talked about this before, and I hound on it a lot because there are a lot of people who are, especially in today's time where we're influenced by so many different things, meaning that we're able to see people doing great things. And it appears to be great because of the way social media is, because of the way editing is, because of so many different things can appear that someone is doing really great in the influence. And what happens is people begin to lose themselves trying to be like somebody else. They begin to lose the authenticness of themselves because they want to be like somebody else. They want to imitate the life of somebody else. And I'm going to tell you now, the moment that you take on the life or the things that somebody else that you're seeing that influences you, it also comes with the warfare or the other things that they have to go through too, right? So, and the analogy that I give in this is like running a track. It's like having a track meet. And if you're running a 100-yard dash, 100 meters, or whatever the case may be, or if you're doing hurdles or whatever the case is, right? When you're running track, there are lanes. You have to stay in your lane. You have to run your race. Some people know that they're better in lane 1 than they are in lane 7. They're better in lane 3 than they are in lane 4, or whatever the case may be, even though they may be right by each other. However, they know that I can run my race and this is why I am. And I use this analogy about the hurdles is because the moment that you try to get in somebody else's lane is the moment that you now have to experience the hurdles that they have to experience. And that wasn't your race. That wasn't the lane that you were supposed to be running in, right? So it's the same way with seeing other people operating and functioning in one place or doing a particular thing and you saying, well, I'm going to do that too. I'm going to do that too. I want to be like them. I want to do this or whatever the case may be. But a lot of times we don't see what's going on behind the scenes. We don't see the work ethic that these people have. We don't see the lifestyle that these people have. So there's so many different things that we don't see. But what we do see is like the final product of something. And once we see the final product, we want the final product, but we don't want the work ethic. We don't want what comes with getting to the final product. Right. So Andy Mineo said in a song, he was like, they see you on the mountain top, but they don't see you on the climb. And that is so true. That is so true. A lot of people will see you at a certain place, or sometimes we see other people at a certain place, but we don't know what their process is. We don't know what the things that they had to go through. So I encourage everybody, man, to always be authentic, always be true, always be yourself. Never try to run a race that's not yours. Because the moment that you try to run a race that's not yours, you have to also deal with the hurdles that were not yours. And there are going to be hurdles. And it hurts when you fall over a hurdle that you were not able to hurdle. I don't know, was that right? Maybe I should have said when you fall over a hurdle or trip over a hurdle that you were not able to jump over. It wasn't your hurdle to hurdle. It was not your hurdle to hurdle, right? It was not your lane to be in. All right. So this is the point of authenticness that I talk about all the time, and I stress to people, man, just be yourself. And it goes on. There's so many different layers to being authentic. Just whether it be just in your day-to-day life, whether it's people, trying to be content creators or people trying to do other things or whatever the case may be. And even it goes to relationships. And I'm a big person on this whole thing too about relationships. Everybody want to have a relationship goal, right? But what you don't see is what goes on in these people relationship on a day-to-day base. And because you want these relationship goals that you see other people have, instead of being authentic and building your own relationship with that person or that individual or whatever the case may be, you try to imitate or grab from another person's relationship and what they have going on and try to bring that into your relationship, and that's not healthy. And that's also you not allowing the other person to be authentic and you actually being able to grow and learn with that person. It's a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing, and I don't encourage anyone to have a relationship goal that's geared towards looking at somebody else's relationship. And I know we've been going through relationships and all these different books and things that we read or whatever, but I think the best relationship is the one that is formed through learning the individual and being able to communicate, being able to understand who they are, where they are, what needs do they have that you can meet, what needs do you have that they can meet. It's just understanding one another. If you can't grow in communication, which is one of the number one things, then you're not going to be able to grow in anything else, right? So from a marriage standpoint, some people, oh man, I know I may get in trouble for some of the things that I'm about to say, but getting married don't make a relationship better. Getting married does not make a relationship better. Sex does not make a relationship better. A relationship takes work. A relationship takes understanding. A relationship sometimes takes strategy. relationships have to be authentically built, not off influence, not off of influence. Because what happens when the person that you're influenced by, and that was your relationship goal, right? 2 years later, this person abused the other person. This person slapped the other person upside the head. This person uh, shot and killed or did something crazy. But this was the relationship goal that you was inspired to live by or wanted to have or you search for, right? What happens when that news breaks? So you have to be mindful to the things that you're looking for and learn how to be authentic in who you are and the relationships that you build. Whether this relationship be you finding, a spouse or girlfriends or boyfriends or whatever the case may be, you have to be authentic. You have to learn how to communicate and build those relationships authentically, not through influencing you. Because what happens when you're trying to build relationships off of influence and having relationship goals is you begin to try to put things on people and make people be something that they're not. You can't make nobody do anything. You can't make nobody be anybody, right? And sometimes it's a whole nother lane. We're not really gonna go into this, but sometimes people try to pray people into being somebody. You can't pray nobody into being a certain way. That is witchcraft. That is manipulation. And God ain't for that, right? You can't pray that God makes this person this way. Not gonna happen. That ain't how God roll, right? So when you're looking for and trying to build relationships, be authentic. Learn how to communicate what it is that you want. Learn how to communicate the things that you need, right? And as you learn how to do those things and build in communication, then you'll find out how things can go in so many different ways for the good versus you just putting your expectation on a person based on a relationship goal or influence that you've seen somebody else have, right? I got to drink a little bit of this water. This H2O. So there's no other way, man, that I feel to build a relationship with anybody other than being true to who you are and what you have, knowing who you are, knowing what value that you bring to a relationship. And that's the thing that you have to do all the time. You have to know your value. You have to know what it is that you offer, that you bring to a relationship, that whether it be you got buddies, or whether this be for guys or girls that you're pursuing, a girl or a guy that you're pursuing. You have to know what it is that you have to offer, what it is that you bring. And don't allow or let sex be the determining factor of how the relationship go. Sex is the last thing I feel. Sex is the last thing I feel that can make a relationship, right? Because all sex does in relationship is provide temporary, and sometimes they're not even needs, they're just wants. So that means that it don't last long. You can enjoy a feeling for a moment and it'll cost you something for a lifetime. That can be sex for a relationship. And what happens? This is where baby mamas come from. This is where baby daddies and all this other kind of stuff come from. This is where we get locked into the systems, the child support and all this other kind of stuff is because we build a relationship off of a temporary feeling of a thing that we just wanted right then, and it don't solve anything. It don't build anything, right? It creates something that makes us want it. We become a addict for that particular thing, not realizing that that is not what really fulfills us. Somebody who knows how to communicate who they are, what their needs are, and the things that they desire, what their goals are, what their missions are, how to be strategic in certain things. People who know how to do those things in relationships sometimes there are other people who can't receive them or know how to accept them because they're too quote unquote outspoken, right? But when we are taught, we're not really taught on how to build and grow in relationships through being authentic in who we are and being able to properly express ourselves. Usually is always this beat around the bush type of thing. I'm gonna play the long game. I'm gonna just feel these things out. And I'm not saying that you should be uh, just outright upfront first date all the time. But I believe it shouldn't take long before you to start saying, hey, these are my expectations, especially depending on age, what age you are sometimes. Sometimes it don't matter. Sometimes you 18, 19, there are people who may be a little bit more mature. But then there's some people who are like 45 and they're dating and they still don't know how to communicate what their goals are, what their missions are. This is what I can bring. This is my value. This is what I add. But I'm not just trying to bring all of me to the table and this be like a 50-50 thing. I want 100-100. Like some people still don't know how to communicate that, right? And that's something that we have to learn how to grow in so that we can build authentic, healthy relationships. And there's so many different areas and lanes that we can go in with these whole relationship things. But those are just a few things that I want to talk about, and highlight in being authentic and building relationships and knowing the proper angle that we should take in communicating with people and things like that. So if you don't know how to do that, if you don't know how to communicate, then I suggest you learn how to do so. That's something that you need to work on because we're in a time now, man, where people just want temporary things from people everywhere, right? It's just a use me type of mentality. And I feel like that's one of the reasons why we don't have or see as many healthy relationships in today's time. And sometimes it's because of people just being misused and abused in different situations and dealing with trauma and things like that. So they don't know how to have another open door, right? Because sometimes they have an open door and they allow someone to come in and then they get misused. And again, because people are not always taught how to build and grow healthy relationships and authentic relationships and know how to steward the relationship. So they misuse, they mismanage, they abuse the other person, they use the other person, they traumatize the other person. All these different things go on. And now there's a closed door, and what happens on the backside of that is the person who was misused and abused and so forth. Now, when they try to build a relationship or want to be in a relationship, they're a little bit hesitant, but they start off with just trying to get something from them or using a person versus actually building an authentic, healthy relationship through communication, through understanding, and so forth. All right, so that's my rant on that. I'm not going to keep beating that horse. But again, because there's so many different lanes that we can go down when it comes to relationships. But my main point is you just being authentic. Learn how to be authentic. Learn how to be true to who you are. Know what you stand for, and know that you have value, and that you are more than what's between your legs. That you don't have to pursue relationship through sex. So that's that. And I just hope that a lot of people are learning from these very things, because we're we're having some tough times now with a lot of different people, and even some people that I've ran into, and people that I know that are just really struggling in relationships. But honestly, it's because of it didn't start off authentic. It started off just emotion driven, which a lot of them do, and no communication. So, and it ends up hurting both parties. Sometimes it's just one. Maybe the other one didn't really care anyway, which is a whole nother issue. So, learn how to be authentic. Learn how to communicate, and know that you actually have value. That you are actually worth something to hold on to. Right? Don't let anybody misuse you. Don't let anybody just treat you or talk to you like you don't, you know, have any value to who you are. So um, we got to do better at that, man, and being able to help people. And if there's somebody that you know that's going through different things like that, whether it be being misused, being abused in relationships, then be able to have this conversation with them. Like, hey, this person don't value you. You know what's going on? You know, because some people know they're in a situation, and then there's some people who can see that they're in a situation and no one says anything. So let's be better at that too. You know, just communicating as friends, because that's another relationship. If we have a friendship, that's a type of relationship that I should be able to have. And if I love you, I can keep it real with you. I could be honest with you, right? Um, and we oftentimes think love is just uh, hugs and kisses and I love you and smiles and things like that. But love brings correction too. Love holds accountable, and if you can't hold somebody accountable, you and bring correction, then you probably need to start assessing that situation. Start assessing that situation. So, but that's that, man. Be authentic. Be authentic. Build healthy relationships. Learn how to communicate. And I'm done with that rabbit hole right there. So, um, the last thing that I'm gonna talk about is the competition that I want to get into. And I'm not gonna harp on this long because this is another thing that I think it kind of goes into similar to what I was just talking about. But we're in a place now, man, again, just through influence and seeing other people, what other people have and things like that, where everybody is trying to compete with everybody. And I talked about this in a snippet of a video before about in the church. The church, there's too much competition in the church. All right, so the world's gonna be the world, and I don't waste time talking about what the world doing, because the world is being the world. The world is doing what the world is gonna do. But as the church, there's things that should not be taking place in the church, and competition is one of those things. Um, I think too many people are looking at, and I'm not just talking about like the church as, you know, First Ebenezer versus Second Mount Olive. I know these are Baptist names, but I'm not just talking about like church as in local churches and things like that. Although competition happens between these churches when they're trying to be outdo one another and things like that. But I'm just talking about us as people, us as the church, as the body, like me and him and you and her and all of us who are out here. There's no need for us to try to compete. I've had this um, thing that I've kind of hopped on for a long time. Like, man, if we're all supposed to be for the same thing, why can't we come together? Why can't we put our ideas and gifts together and abilities and change the world? Why does it always have to be competition? Why does it always have to be, well, they over there doing this or they over there doing that? We ain't trying to be like them, but we gonna do this or do that or try to, that stuff just, it blows my mind as the body, as the church, on why there's so much competition, why we're always comparing, why we're always competing with one another, trying to outdo one another, versus being able to come together, right? I love there's certain things that I've seen recently that I really, really love, with the church supporting other churches and helping them grow and helping them build so that they can continue to push forward the gospel into different areas and different countries and different things like that. But then there's another side where I think is actually more on the opposite side of helping than it is on the side of people actually helping each other. And that is a problem. When are we going to be able to just come together and just do the will of God and stop trying to compete with one another, with our businesses and with all these other things? Now, I'm not saying that everybody has to work with everybody. Everybody has to do things with everybody, and everybody has to sow for this person and that person and things like that. But however, there is a um, there is thing that I believe can happen where whether it's community driven or community based, where you know where we can just sit down, have a conversation, and see what is the vision, what is the mission, what are you trying to do, how can we help, how can we support, how can we have your back, how can you have our back, and whatever the case may be, so that the same mission, if we're for the same mission, if we have the same cause, then why can't we come together and put a plan together to impact the world, to impact communities, to change lives of the people who are around us that we can influence like 2 miles away from us, versus having 7 churches 2 miles down the street from each other. But that's my rant. I'm not gonna go down that rabbit hole too far. All right. But we have to do better, as people of God, as the church, in learning how to work together, learning how to come together for a greater cause, for a greater mission. If we're all for the same thing, then let's be about it, and let's work together. Let's do stuff together. I love to see my brothers and sisters do great in Christ. I love to see them do great. My real brothers too, my blood brothers and sisters. But my brothers and sisters in Christ, man, I love to see them do great. And I don't mind offering any assistance, even if it's just information. And everything that you offer to help somebody, whether it be your brother or sister in Christ, or whether it be, people on the street. And I know it's a different kind of conversation, but whenever you're assisting someone or offering help to someone who's in need of a thing, sometimes information is great as well. It's just as valuable. But I found that people just love to withhold the information as well, because of the competition, because of they don't want this person to be better at them in a particular thing, or they feel like, well, if I tell you how to do it, then you're going to take people away from me, or well, we have too much of that. And as an entrepreneur and myself, there's things that I ran into where a lot of people just didn't give me information. I have people that would give me information. I didn't have the resources like that. There's a lot of things that I had to learn on my own. And through that, and I thank God for that process for me, because when I gave my life to Christ, that was one of the things that I said that I'm going to make sure it's not a stumbling block for others, is information or resources or whatever. So if I can serve, and now I'm not saying you just give stuff away for free, right? I'm not saying everything got to be free. However, I am saying that sometimes people are really good people, and they have a really great gift, or they have a really great talent or something that they can really do, and it can help them. It can help them financially. It can help them mentally, physically. It's just a lot of different things that they just really know how to do, but they don't have the information, or sometimes they don't have the funds, or sometimes they don't have, other resources and things like that. And the moment that we can be one of those things, we choose not to, because of they're going to be better than us. They're going to do more than us. As the body, as the church, we should love to see that. I love to see my brothers and sisters, whether they're doing greater than me from a standpoint of their business is thriving or their life is thriving and doing better. Like, I don't have a problem with that. That's what we should want for one another. If we want that from one another, then we're going to continue to thrive. We're going to continue to prosper. We're going to continue to do great things. We're going to continue to elevate one another and continue to go to high levels in different things in different areas. But I digress. We got to do better. That's my rant on that. This is Get Inspired, people. I'm thankful for this episode. I was able to kind of free flow and just kind of have a conversation with you guys about a couple of things. Hopefully, it has helped some people. Hopefully, you've taken some things away from it. Even in the story and the parable of the prodigal son. And the main point of that is us staying connected to the source. because that's the one that holds us in the middle of famines, whenever things go sideways or go left. And the other part of it is whatever God gives you, learn how to use and not misuse. Learn how to manage and be a good steward and not do whatever and act a fool with what God gives. And then you find yourself kind of wandering back. Now, it's okay if you struggle, if you fall away and you come back, but don't let that be a recurring thing in your life. All right. The other part of what we talked about today is just being authentic, being true, being authentic, knowing yourself, knowing your value, knowing what you bring to the table, knowing that you are a difference maker. Whatever room that you walk in, you are a difference maker. God's given everybody a gift, I believe, a talent, a purpose in this earth to execute. And wherever you are to be the light. You are to be the difference maker. You are to be the voice in any environment that you're in. Now, always execute in humility as well. Be wise in the things that you do. So always execute in those things as well. But yeah, take advantage of what God gives. Don't misuse it. Don't abuse it. Be authentic. Be yourself. And learn how to build proper, healthy relationships with other people. All right. So hopefully I get to do another episode solo and hang out with you guys. But it's been fun. It's been real. It's been great. Again, if you want to be on the Get Inspired podcast, make sure that you go to www.ghfgd, which stands for Go Hard for God Daily. It's like a little acronym. All right, go to the website. All the links will be in the description. You can fill out the form. Again, get inspired. What we do right here is allow other believers to put their lifestyle on display. What they do, whether you're an athlete, football, basketball, baseball, high school, college, NFL, major league, NBA, wherever you are as an athlete, as a believer, whether you're pastors, prophets, evangelists, whoever, whether you're in the marketplace as a chef, as a cook, as a counselor, or whether you're a lawyer, whether you're whatever it is that you are, let's put your lifestyle on display and show that, God is using you. Show how God is using you to navigate that area, and you going hard for God daily in that area of your life. All right. So full-time moms too. If you're a full-time mom, shout out to you guys as well. I know it's not a easy thing to do, depending on how many of those young ones that you have to manage as well. But stay connected to the source, and God will keep you covered as well. So yeah, fill out the form if you want to be on the podcast. Let us know, and we will be getting back with you guys very, very soon. And we look forward to doing more of these. I don't think we're going to go anywhere anytime soon. We're going to continue to create this atmosphere for you guys to be inspired, for you guys to be encouraged, for you guys to move forward in some things. And yeah, today's been good. I'm excited that I got a chance to kind of be solo today and just reveal a little bit of things that's been on my heart and talk about some stuff that I've been studying this week as well. So grace and peace and blessings. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Everything that we do reflects a lifestyle. I go hard for God daily cause I'm God's child. I got a purpose that I'm doing on purpose. Firm foundation, 10 toes meet the surface. Something always happen when I bless His name. My faith got me standing tall like Great Danes. Holy Spirit's in the room. We don't have to light a candle. Go ahead and let your light shine. And treat the word as a handle. Holy Spirit's in the room. We don't have to light a candle. Go ahead and let your light shine. And treat the word as a handle.